news. Now, we can see that the deep state, they are in panic mode right now. I mean, we went over all the tweets yesterday about how they're screaming and yelling, and they're calling for impeachment, and they're sending signals back and forth, most likely about assassination. We also see they don't want Kavanaugh confirmed, and we can see that they're doing whatever they possibly can to make sure that this doesn't happen. But I don't think their plan is going as well as they would want it to, because we see at this point a classmate of Christine Blasey Ford is backing off claims that she knew anything about an alleged sexual assault committed by Kavanaugh. Christina King Miranda, who attended high school with Ford, wrote on Facebook this week that she heard school rumors about an incident involving Kavanaugh and Ford back in the 80s. Then she deleted the post and said she did not want to talk to the media about her claims. So it looks like she's backing off for some reason. Something happened. We see Senator Grassley has set Friday for a deadline for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford to come forward and to testify. And Grassley said she must officially respond by 10 a.m. Friday. Now, what's very interesting is that Christina Blasey Ford has dramatically flipped now, telling legislators in an email somehow obtained by the New York Times that she would be prepared to testify next week so long as senators offer terms that are fair and which ensure her safety. Meanwhile, former clerk to the late U.S. Supreme Court Justice Scalia, Ed Whelan, insists that evidence will emerge next week to exonerate Kavanaugh, and that Dianne Feinstein will soon be apologizing to Kavanaugh. Now, this is very interesting. We're going to have to see how this plays out. And we know that Q said in his post that Kavanaugh is a sure thing. So they must have had this evidence all along, and they were just waiting for the right time to spring it. We see Nellie Ohr, the wife of Justice Department Bruce Ohr, is refusing to appear before Congress for a closed-door hearing that was scheduled to take place on Friday. And we're also seeing that James Baker is not cooperating with the committee's request for an interview. Now, remember, back September 11th, post 2156, Q came out and said, panic in D.C., James Baker testifying against Comey, post 2158, panic in D.C., Bruce Ohr in an effort to save Nellie Ohr testifying against Rosenstein, Yates, Lynch, and Comey. These two individuals already flipped. And is there any reason that they need to testify in front of Congress? Most likely not, and maybe this is why they are not going to. But we'll have to see what happens. But we know already from Q that both of these individuals, they are going to be testifying against others. And Bruce Ohr, the husband of Nellie Ohr, is going to be testifying against Rosenstein, Yates, and Lynch to save her. So we'll have to see how all this plays out. We know that the refugee crisis in Europe is a big problem, and Putin came out and he said something very interesting. He said the European Union only has itself to blame for the migrant crisis plaguing the continent. He said, listen, all you need to do is stop paying these refugees. You're giving them cash payments, you're giving them social benefits and other bonuses, and this is why all the refugees are coming into Europe. Yes, this was Soros's plan. Now he's in Africa doing the same thing because the Middle East is a no-go for him because the refugees are going back into those countries. So Putin is calling them out on this. Listen, you're the ones who are causing this problem. Yes, they were causing this problem because their plan was to blend the world together to have a one-world government. That plan is not working now, and other countries are starting to wake up and they're starting to see what is happening. And Putin's just out there saying, listen, just stop it. We know what you're doing. We see North Korea and South Korea. They're going to be forming a joint military committee. And this is a hugely important step. The two nations are going to reduce decades of military tensions, negotiate efforts to move their respective forces away from the border as the efforts to negotiate a peace treaty advance. And we might even see these two countries blend together. We see the U.S., they're preparing a new treaty with Iran. And this is U.S. Special Envoy Brian Hook says the U.S.'s goal is to negotiate a major treaty with Iran covering a wide variety of issues, including its missile program. Now, the difference between what was done with Obama and what they have today is that this is not going to be a personal agreement between two governments like the last one. It's going to be a treaty. So this is a very big difference, and we know this was a personal agreement with Obama. This is why Kerry was out there breaking the law, speaking to Iran, because they're hiding things, and they don't want Iran to say, you know something, let's renegotiate, because at that point, they're in big trouble. We see over 2,500 Islamic State members. They are now being moved from Syria to Afghanistan, and maybe this is the reason why Trump increased the troops in Afghanistan, because we understand that they are really fighting the Islamic State, eliminating the Islamic State. And why do I say this? Remember, al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, they were created by the intelligence agencies. They are the paid mercenary army of the deep state. And we can see that they're just moving these individuals around. And now Afghanistan has become the principal center of the Islamic State terrorists, because they don't know where else to put them. But we know there's peace negotiations going on with the Afghanistan Taliban and the government, and we understand that the troops are going after these terrorist groups. So when they're moved out of Syria, guess what? The troops are hitting them right there and then, and they're going down. We see Russian Foreign Minister Zakharova is saying that al-Nusra terrorists, they're supplying armed groups in Syria with chemical weapons, and this is not chlorine gas. They're supplying them with sarin gas, and they're getting ready to use it. Now, it looks like they've been preparing for quite a while. We're going to have to see how this all plays out. But we can see with Israel using their tactics, they were trying to make it look like, someone else shot down the reconnaissance plane. They didn't want it to look like it was Syria, and they were hiding behind the reconnaissance plane, but that whole plan completely failed. Putin is not going to react the way they think he's going to react. They're not going to go off and bomb, some force where they think the missile came from and start a world war. They've tried this many times before. Even Turkey, when they were, ruled by the deep state, the U.S., the coalition forces, they shot down a Russian plane. They thought this was going to start World War III. Putin does not react like that. He's much smarter than that. And they've tried many, many times before, but it just doesn't work. But guess what? The deep state, they'll keep trying. Remember, the deep state is not just in the U.S. They're in many locations around the world in many different countries. Let's get into some Q posts here. Post 2210, September 19th. How about a nice game of chess, Q says. I.G. Horowitz, Justice Department speech, whistleblowers, gave the link to oigjustice.gov, Chairman of the Council of the Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency. Since 2015, he has simultaneously served as the chair of the Council of the Inspector General on Integrity and Efficiency, an organization comprised of all 73 federal inspector generals. Think yesterday. What was learned? Robert Storch confirmed NSA IG. And they gave a link to Storch's profile. First presidentially appointed IG for NSA. Department of Justice background important. Federal prosecutor in Northern District of New York background important. Chairman of the Council of the Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency background important. Prior to joining NSA, Mr. Storch served in several positions at the Department of Justice, OIG, including a senior counsel to the IG and acting deputy IG prior to his 2015 appointment as deputy IG. He also served as chairman of the Council of the Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency, Whistleblower Ombudsman Working Group, the Whistleblower Ombudsman Person program he helped establish is widely seen as a leader in the field. Earlier in his career, Mr. Storch also worked as federal prosecutor in the Northern District of New York, most recently serving as the deputy criminal chief and counsel to the U.S. Attorney. He was also posted overseas for 2 years as a Department of Justice resident legal advisor in Ukraine. Vehicle for cross-sharing of department info, RE Inspector Generals. Council of Inspector General on Integrity and Efficiency. The CIGIE is comprised of all Inspector Generals whose officers are established under Section 2 or Section 8G of the Inspector General Act of 1978, those that are presidentially appointed, Senate confirmed, and those that are appointed by agencies' heads, designated federal entities. Then gave a link to legalcounsel.house.gov. How might this benefit possible ongoing investigations across intra-federal agencies? Huber, 2 arrows pointing to Horowitz, 2 arrows pointing to Storch. U.S. Attorney, Prosecutor, pointing to Department of Justice, FBI Inspector General, Investigator, pointing to Signals Intelligence Signet, and Information Assurance IA Products and Services. Q then gave another link, justice.gov. NSA been pushed since the beginning. Logical thinking. The experts. So the experts say the following. But Sessions should appoint a second special counsel in D.C., also known as the corrupt swamp. But Sessions should appoint a second special counsel in D.C., also known as the corrupt swamp, team of less than 20 typically, and wait 2 to 4 years, take a gamble. But Sessions should appoint a second special counsel in D.C., also known as the corrupt swamp, because unlike the Clinton email corrupt case, as demonstrated by the FBI Department of Justice, people fired, removed. This will be conducted faithfully and honestly like Mueller. And this is in brackets bold. But Huber has not directly interviewed several witnesses. Therefore, the appointment of Huber by Sessions, and therefore the IG, is not genuine, which is completely false. But Sessions and Huber are following standard Department of Justice open and ongoing investigation policies by not discussing making public, so therefore nothing must be happening. Fire Sessions. Things are happening in the background. You don't leak this information. You keep it under tight wraps so nobody knows about it because you're actually investigating, putting all the evidence together. He went on to say, but Huber, ability to prosecute and impanel a grand jury outside of D.C., 90% plus voted Hillary Clinton 2016, who already began the investigations late last year with a assigned team of 470 investigators, attorneys plus IG plus legal jurisdiction across all 50 states, is not a special counsel so therefore nothing is being done. But POTUS is attacking Sessions via Twitter, so therefore he is not working on behalf of the people's interests, or POTUS. D's left love trust Sessions. This is all a setup. He's playing with the mainstream media, with the deep state. They want everyone to embrace Sessions, because when you have everyone embracing Sessions and all of a sudden Sessions and Huber start to prosecute, guess what happens? How do they back out of that? It's going to be kind of tough. But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are so many FBI and Department of Justice senior officials being fired and or removed from their respective positions of power? Who is the Attorney General? Who must sign off on each removal? Department of Justice in charge of FBI. But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are there 50,000 plus sealed indictments across the U.S.? What percentage equals USA versus X? Coincidence versus Huber start? But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are many powerful CEOs, members of Congress, Senate, resigning? Coincidence? Example. Pre-POTUS, did the Speaker of the House indicate wanting to leave politics? But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are human trafficking arrests surging? Nothing to see here. So when we look at this, we can see that Storch is truth to power. This is another indication that everything is set up and in place. Yesterday, Q informed us that the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz has impeccable credentials and can be trusted. We also learned that the new NSA Inspector General Robert Storch, the first appointed by a president, has a long history with the Department of Justice, and Horowitz was a federal prosecutor in New York and has Admiral Rogers' stamp of approval. He's our guy. Q informed us that the Council of Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency facilitates the sharing of information between IGs for related agencies. A coordinated effort among multiple agencies with people of different skill sets is required to take down corruption, to take down the swamp, to take down the deep state. Horowitz is running the internal FBI Department of Justice investigation. Horowitz coordinates with Storch. The NSA Inspector General, General Nakasone, assists with signal intelligence gathering by the NSA. Jeff Sessions works with John Huber on prosecuting the swamp. All coordinate across agencies. So Q is telling us that all these people are in place and they're going to be talking to each other to take down the swamp. They're all working together. And again, Q is telling us nothing's being leaked because this is a real investigation. The deep state, the swamp, they leak everything to the press because there's nothing going on. And they use the press to convince the public. Well, if there's a real investigation, you don't have to convince everyone. You just have to come out with facts and evidence. And that's what they're doing. Let's move on to post 2211. Rod Rosenstein attempts to stall D-Class and or redact have failed. Got popcorn? Enjoy the show. So Rod Rosenstein is still trying to stall everything, and he's trying to stop it where everything is coming out unredacted. He's trying to keep the redaction marks in place, but they have failed. So what does Sarah Carter have to say about this? Sarah Carter says it was a silent coup. There are documents that are going to shock the conscience of our country. They will be charged. She went on to say, I have been told by sources that the documents will be turned over to the president next week. I hear that the FBI and the Department of Justice are redacting. What they're going to do is turn those documents over to the president, and what they're going to say is, now it's up to you to declass. I think they're going to figure ways to stall or maybe put pressure on the president, Sarah Carter says. So everything is in motion, and these people, they are nervous, they are afraid, they're panicking, and this is why we see all these tweets coming out. And this is why Adam Schiff was out there saying, hey, the president just crossed a red line, which I do believe is a signal for assassination. James Comey was standing under Abe Lincoln, who was assassinated. Everything is being coordinated. Are they going to try to take him out? Maybe. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to fail. Post 2212. Q put up a picture. It says a tweet from Donald Trump. The Supreme Court is one of the main reasons I got elected president. I hope Republican voters and others are watching and studying the Democrats' playbook. Then put up a link to In the Matrix. This is the In the Matrix Twitter feed. Do you believe in coincidences? Think of context. Nothing to see here. So yesterday at 3:57 p.m. Pacific time, Q asked Adam Schiff and the Dems if they needed a new playbook. A few hours later, the president asked Republicans to study the Dems' playbook. I mean, is that a coincidence or was that planned? It was planned. We know it. Post, and that's another confirmation, by the way. Post 2213, Castle Lock Q. The Castle Lock post came 2 minutes after Trump's tweet. And what is Trump's tweet? Just returned to the White House from the great state of North Carolina and South Carolina, where incredible work is being done on the ongoing fight against Hurricane Florence. Tremendous talents and spirit. So if D.C. is in a panic, the Secret Service right now might be taking extra precautions. And this is why we see Castle Lock. Post 2214, panic in UK, panic in DC, panic in UK, panic in DC, Q. So basically, where everything has been taking place in DC, with U.S. representatives of the deep swamp, of the deep state, and representatives of the deep state in the UK. They are all panicking right now. They don't know what to do. Post 2215. Q decided to do a question and answer period of time here with Anons, and Anon started to ask questions. So post 2216, and Anon asked a question. Trudeau, anything? Owl. Q responded. Billionaires, 187. 5I, safety house build. Uranium 1 funnel to Canada, 2X. Q. Is this a Trudeau connection? Yes, this is what Q is saying. The Shermans held a fundraiser for Justin Trudeau that may have violated campaign laws. Their attorney was attempting to quash a federal investigation just before they were murdered. And basically, if we go to an article on the New York Post, it says, and days before he died, the Shermans' attorney filed documents in the Canadian federal court in an attempt to quash government investigation into a possible violation of lobbying rules in connection with a $1,100 a plate fundraising dinner the Shermans held at their home for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2015. Let's move on to post 2217. And Anon put up Flynn, and it says loading behind his head. Under it, it says Flynn exonerated soon. Q responded, in the end, all will be right. Patriots protect patriots. Q. And I do believe Flynn will be set free because they really have nothing on him. And Mueller already postponed the hearing once again because they know there's nothing, that they have nothing on Flynn. And we know this from the texts from Strzok and Page and the rest, that he was set up, and they altered the 302s. Post 2218. Sexual misconduct is the public shelter to accept resignation. Watch those announcing 2020 P running. You cannot attack a political opponent. None are protected. None are safe. So sexual misconduct will continue to be the public reason for resignation. A number of people are in hot water. Eric Holder has also floated the idea of running for the presidency in 2020. Convenient cover? Well, Q saying none are safe. We also know that Cory Booker, Biden, Kerry, they're all looking to run. So this is very interesting. And none of them are safe. They can't escape this. Post 2219 /CM /CM stands for Code Monkey. Please divert more resources bandwidth into the board. So the board started to shudder under the weight. They started to slow down. And the Anons, there were a lot of Anons arriving at once. And they were trying to give more horsepower to the board. And Q is signaling Code Monkey to beef up the 8chan boards. That's what that means. Another question an Anon wrote was the Pentagon hit by a plane on 9/11? This is post 2221. And Q says yes. Now, a lot of Anons have trouble with this. Now, let's look at the question first of all. Was the Pentagon hit by a plane? They didn't say the plane was a 757. They didn't say it was a passenger plane. And I wish they were a little bit more specific when they were asking this question. Q is saying, yes, there was a plane that hit. Now, a lot of people think that it's a missile that was actually hit into this building. Or maybe it was a different type of plane that had explosives on it. Now, Q is telling us that it was a plane, but there's still a lot of Anons having problems with this. And, an Anon put up a picture showing the hole in the Pentagon. They show the plane of the 757, but what happens, and they're showing like, hey, where did the wings go? We're not seeing the damage in the building from the wings. What happens if it was a smaller jet filled with explosives and the wingspan wasn't there? Those planes can be maneuvered very easily into the building. Yes, I know there's problems with the 757 being maneuvered to making that turn, but if you have a fighter jet filled with explosives, it could be done. Post 2221. And Anon asked, Are we alone? Roswell. Q answered, no. Highest classification, consider the vastness of space. So I think what Q is saying is that we are not alone in the universe. Think of space. It's huge. Let's move on to post 2222. And Anon asked, was moving the date back on POTUS FEMA presidential alert significant? And Q said, due to Kavanaugh's confirmation push, hand in hand, Rod Rosenstein stand down due to Kavanaugh confirmation. So the confirmation push for Judge Kavanaugh necessitated the reschedule of the emergency broadcast test. Kavanaugh's confirmation also helped squash Rod Rosenstein's attempt to obstruct Trump's declassification of FISA's Spygate documents. And I do believe that everything is set now for October 3rd, and if everything is in place, we'll have the test come 33 minutes after the confirmation of Kavanaugh. And I believe they're setting this up because they're a little bit nervous that something might happen, and the president, doesn't matter where he is, can talk to the nation without the mainstream media, without the television stations. It goes right to your device. And I believe they're nervous about this, and this is why they want this in place hand in hand to make sure that they're covered and they can cover what is going on if something does happen. Post 2223 /CM, which is CodeMonkey, / please confirm ASAP resource upgrade, tracking 330,000 IPs, which is causing extreme lag. What this means is, if everyone has their own IP, 330,000 users trying to get into the boards. And it looks like there's a huge lag here. Post 2224. And Anon asked, did NASA fake the moon landing? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why the Space Force was created? Q responded, false. Moon landings are real. Programs exist that are outside of public domain. Once again, Anons had problem with this because a lot of the pictures that we're seeing from moon landings, they seem like they were faked. Now, many Anons had a problem with this because when you start to look at some of these pictures, a lot of them don't look real. They don't match up. The crosshairs are behind the flag and things like that. I don't know if everyone has seen those type of pictures, but there's anomalies in these pictures. Now, one Anon has a theory about this, that they had to fake the pictures of the moon because what they found there was very disturbing and could not be presented to the public. And if you listen to what Q says, he says moon landings are real and programs exist that are outside of the public domain, which makes me think that we've been to the moon many more times after that, but the public just doesn't know about it. And this could be a possibility. Post 2225. And Anon said, we're definitely being attacked. No, we are DDoSing ourselves with over 330,000 IPs. Q says it's more like 412,000 now. That's how many people are coming to the boards. So it looks like the boards didn't have enough horsepower, and this is why they're telling CodeMonkey to boost the power of the boards. And we can see from everything that's going on, Q is trying to be transparent. Maybe people don't agree with Q. I don't think the questions were specific enough to get the right answer. You just can't ask a simple question. You have to be very, very specific when we ask these questions, because you're just going to get a general answer and it's not going to fit what you think it's supposed to be. Just like if a plane hit the Pentagon. Actually, the question should have been, did a plane, a 757 plane or a passenger plane, hit the Pentagon? And maybe Q would have responded, no, it was a different type of plane. And that would have given us the answer. The same thing with the moon landing. We needed to go a little bit further on that to get more information. And I can see why everyone's upset. I mean, when I first read it, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Because when you look at some of these anomalies, you have to question what's really going on here. But the deep state at this point, they are in a major, major panic. All the key players are in place. It's just a matter of time. And the time is running out for the deep